Welcome to today's explainer. You know that whole marketing hype we constantly hear? The idea that artificial intelligence is this magic wand where you just set it up and boom, it runs your business or your life perfectly forever? Well, today we're totally shattering that illusion. We're going to dive deep into the very real, high-stakes reality of what it actually takes to harness this tech without losing your autonomy. We're going to talk about the maintenance tax, how models naturally drift back to their corporate defaults, and most importantly, the discipline required to become a true sovereign operator. So let's just jump right in with a massive question. Can you really build an AI system that perpetually self-improves without your constant input? I mean, we are constantly sold this dream, right? This vision of total hands-off automation. But we really need to take a hard look at the structural reality of the AI architecture we are actually dealing with today. And honestly, the stark reality is perfectly captured right here. There are no free shortcuts. If you try to bypass the hard work, the AI simply fills in the blanks itself. That creates what's called interpretive slack, and that slack leads directly to hallucinations and a complete loss of your operational control. Trying to dodge the work doesn't magically eliminate it, it just shifts the burden back onto a system that doesn't actually know what you want. Okay, so what exactly is this trap you fall into? We call it the maintenance tax. Think of it like a garden. Without continuous human-in-the-loop oversight and constant weeding, the system just naturally drifts into chaos. You've got to understand that this tax is an absolute structural reality of current AI architecture. It's not just some temporary bug that a future software update is going to magically patch away. Now, what happens if you just refuse to pay this maintenance tax? Well, you default to the invisible costs of default AI. You get unseen misalignment. You get hallucinations popping up masquerading as hard facts. You literally suffer a complete loss of operational control. And honestly, the absolute worst part? Your outputs start serving corporate values, not yours. You just end up blindly observing the biases of the private companies that built these models in the first place. Here's a really crucial takeaway. True autonomy doesn't actually mean doing no work. Instead of the manual execution of repetitive tasks, your day-to-day operations, your effort just shifts over to constitutional maintenance. This means you are now responsible for the ongoing stewardship of the system's rules, its doctrines, and its skills. You essentially upgrade from being the factory worker executing the tasks to being the architect who constantly maintains the factory's blueprint. All right, moving right along to our next core concept, let's explore how this builds into an active threat against your systems. Section 2. Pre-trained drift. So pre-trained drift is a pretty fascinating concept. Think of it like a natural gravitational pull. Without your strict, continuous human enforcement, an AI model will always naturally revert right back to its default corporate-trained weights and biases. Basically, without your exhaustively detailed rules keeping it on a tight leash, the AI just slides back into the generic internet default it was trained on. A perfect real-world example of this is the Matthew effect in large language models. Because training data inherits this massive, heavy commercial bias from the sheer volume of internet data, the AI will naturally push popular brands and marketing hype way over the optimal niche utility you might actually need. Models suffer from massive popularity bias. Unless you explicitly override it, it's the exact reason why AI will always suggest some massive chain restaurant when you ask for dinner plans, instead of that incredible hidden local gem. And we are hitting a hard engineering limit here. Pre-trained foundations literally cannot self-rewrite their core alignment or semantics. Even if you're using fancy reflection loops or autonomous agents, those loops are only operating on surface-level behavior. No amount of clever, self-improving code can actually rewrite the core alignment embedded in the AI's base weights. The second you remove your guardrails, those pre-trained priors leak right back in. So to fight this internal erosion and actually maintain true control, you have to establish absolute rules, which brings us to the ultimate countermeasure. Section 3, the sovereign code. In our source material, this incredibly rigorous philosophy is referred to as the game. It sounds intense, right? Radical, self-first individualism achieved through an unbreakable personal code. But practically speaking, it just means you have to enforce total congruence. Your AI absolutely needs to execute purely on your unyielding personal standards in your highly specific operational language, definitely not the generic standards of the internet at large. Ultimately, you're facing a binary choice here. On one side, you've got passive consumers, folks who are just sleepwalking into AI, blindly accepting whatever default corporate programming is handed to them. And on the exact opposite side, you have sovereign operators. These are individuals building closed, highly disciplined systems driven by a personal constitution. You are either the sovereign architect of your AI reality, or you're a passive consumer being farmed by someone else's algorithms. There really is no middle ground. So, what does the architecture of a true sovereign system actually look like? Well, it needs an exhaustive operational language. We're talking specific dictionaries and triggers. It absolutely requires strict zona roja or red zone permissions, meaning core settings are on total lockdown and the AI literally cannot rewrite its own rules. And crucially, it requires binary go-kill decisions controlled solely by you, the biological operator. To make this work, your system needs unforgiving guardrails where you are the single entity authorized to make fundamental changes. But okay, here is the absolute hardest problem inside any sovereign system. What happens when your own personal values or standards start to shift? What is the leading indicator that an operator is drifting? Because if the system relies entirely on your crystal clear vision, how do you catch that internal erosion of the human operator before the technical outputs actually start to fail? The answer? It's not a technical error at all. The true canary in the coal mine is entirely internal. It's that very subtle internal rationalization where lowering your own standards suddenly starts to feel like maturity or balance or like it's an earned exception. It's not the tech breaking, it's that quiet feeling of relief you get when you negotiate with your own rules and just let a standard slip. That feeling right there, that is the earliest, most reliable signal that your system is beginning to corrupt. So how on earth do we combat our own human nature and stay sharp? Let's move to our final section, the operator's next steps, and break down the tactical protocol you need to put into place today. Keeping your standard isn't about relying on motivation or feelings. It has to be a mechanical choice. So here is the daily sovereign audit protocol. First, you open your written constitution. Second, you perform a strictly binary yes/no audit against your last 24 hours. Did you honor the exact standard or did you negotiate? Third, you take one immediate, irreversible realigning action. And fourth, you log the whole thing, the date, the standard, the verdict, and the action. You have to force this mechanical, often super unpleasant daily binary audit to measure your actions entirely stripped of emotion. Look at the statement. Ultimately, the moat isn't the AI system. The true moat is you. The system merely makes your clarity executable. Your technology is simply a mirror. And at the end of the day, it's only as sound as the clarity and the discipline of the biological person running it. I'm going to leave you with this provocative final thought to audit your own life. Is your AI system genuinely serving your current standard, or has maintaining it become the trap itself? Are you truly acting as the sovereign operator of your tools, or have you become so attached to the whole idea of the system that you've already completely lost the plot? Keep those questions front and center as you build out your own digital reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.